you all look good. And you sound a little wound up, too. So it looks like I planned coming here just in time. So I appreciate you all being here. I'm going to get a few notes figured out here. Looks like they're a little bit messed up. But I wanted to thank you all for letting me come and to be here with you today. And I will tell you, I am a new member of the freshman class. Yes. You know, we have a lot of things to do, don't we? Isn't it a great time to be a conservative? It is. It is. We just celebrated President Reagan's 100th birthday. Yes. I'm very proud of our president. And also, we have judges across this country striking down our job-destroying health care law that was passed last year. And we've got several new, in fact, 87 new Republican freshman members of this class that came to Washington, D.C., not to be defined by one vote, not to be defined by one decision that they would make, but to actually change the way that Washington, D.C. does business. So it is an excellent time to be a conservative. And I'll tell you that none of us got here on our own. We all got here with your help. You guys have been hard-working activists, grassroots people that have stepped up and helped all of us. You know, I'll use my own personal example to start with. When I started my race, nobody knew who I was. I was in the state legislature. In fact, I was the assistant majority leader in our House. But that certainly doesn't make you famous. Nobody knew who I was. In fact, I think I had 9% name ID. And I jumped in about 5 or 6 months after the other two candidates in the Republican primary had been running. But it was because of people like you, because of people who just decided, you know what, for this last election, we needed to have our strongest candidates running. We needed to have people running that fall that could actually win the seats. You got involved and you helped people win the primaries that could get the job done, and then actually helped them get the job done in November. And that was extremely important, because if you look at this House of Representatives, it has completely changed. We took that gavel back from Nancy Pelosi. You know, when I was down on that House floor, and I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, I'm from South Dakota, I'm a farmer. So, you know, I'm nobody special. And I think that's one of the things that really resonated back in South Dakota, was the fact that I was just like everybody else. That I was common, everyday, ordinary people, and people wanted to send me there to represent them because I knew how they felt. That I knew exactly how they felt when this administration came out with new regulations that was going to close their doors, that was going to keep them from making a profit that year, that was going to be so difficult for them to continue to survive, and more taxes and continuing to spend money that we were working so hard to earn. So I was just like them. But when I was standing on that House floor, I had the opportunity to have my 3 children there with me. It's the first time they'd been to Washington, D.C. So it was kind of a monumental trip for them. And I have 2 girls, Cassidy, who's 16, and Kennedy, who's 13, and then an 8-year-old boy named Booker. And his dad named him, by the way. I did not name that child. His dad named him. So all of his little friends, when he was growing up, they could not pronounce that name. You can imagine what they called him. It was not Booker. But Booker was standing on the House floor with me, and he said, he kept turning around. It was a couple hours before we were really sworn in, and he kept turning around to me and saying, "Mom, should I pay attention to this? Should I pay attention to this?" And when Speaker Boehner was receiving the gavel from Nancy Pelosi, I said, "You pay attention to this." I said, for the rest of your life, you're going to want to tell everybody that you know that you were standing on the House floor when we made it the people's house again. So I was asked to speak a little bit about why I came to Washington, D.C., and why I'm here. And I can't really do that unless I tell you a little bit about myself. I am a farmer and rancher in South Dakota. In fact, I grew up there, and from the time I was really little, I knew that that's what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to farm and ranch with my dad. My dad was a cowboy. So he said things like, instead of complain about something, why don't you do something about it? Well, that came home to roost when it came time to talk about our government. He was a tough guy, raised us to work hard, and we never outworked him, no matter how many hours we spent. But when I went to college and was attending college in South Dakota, my dad was killed in an accident on our farm. He was 49 years old, so he was young. And my older brother and sister were living out of state. My sister was in Georgia, and my older brother was in Oklahoma. My younger brother was still in high school. And so I came back to help take the family pull together and keep our operation operating and keeping the doors open. We had some tough decisions at that point in time. I was young. But I will tell you, at that point in time, we got hit really hard with estate taxes. You know, we had a large operation. We employed a lot of people. We raised cattle as well. And for me, being young, coming back to that situation, having a tragedy in our family, and then immediately being told that we owed thousands and thousands of dollars to the federal government because that tragedy happened to us was devastating. I had to decide if we were going to sell land that had been in our family for generations, or if I was going to take out a loan to pay off that debt. Now, my dad also told me that you never sell land, that you hang on. They're not making any more land. I don't know if anybody told you that, but they're not making any more land. So I decided that we'd take out a loan. So for 10 years, we paid on those estate taxes, and it made it very difficult for our operation to cash flow. So when you talk about driving home how government impacts businesses, when you talk about visiting with people about how taxes can impact your ability to feed your family, I know, because I lived it and went through it, and that's when I started to get involved and serve. Within several years, I started serving on boards and commissions. My brother and sister decided to move back to South Dakota. It's a pretty great place to be. It's very cold right now, so if you're going to visit, I wouldn't visit right now. But come a little bit later, and we'll thaw out here by maybe July or August. But they decided they wanted to come back and farm with us. We started a hunting lodge, which was a wonderful hunting lodge, and I'll take anybody hunting who wants to go, which I managed. And then my mom bought a restaurant because she thought it would be a lot of fun. And I don't know if any of you in here have run restaurants before, but it is fun, but it is also a lot of work. So I went up there at night and did her books for her and helped to manage her employees. So I'm just a normal, everyday person running businesses in South Dakota. I ran for our legislature in 2006, and the last 2 years I was assistant majority leader in the House. I sat back and looked at our country, and my dad's words came back to me and said, you can't just complain about what's happening. You need to do something about it. And so I was sitting on my couch watching the debate and watching the discussion on the health care law and decided, you know what, maybe I need to run. Maybe we need common, everyday, ordinary people out there serving. So I jumped. And that's what this class is. This freshman class is historic. Not just historic in size, but also historic in the fact that they want to deliver historic results. They want to actually deliver the change that we need in this country that will turn us around and put us back on the track that our founding fathers envisioned. They were tired of all the things that were being done out here in Washington, D.C., tired of all these backroom deals, tired of the bailouts, tired of no consequences. I got one more story about Booker. When we were campaigning, he said to me, you know, obviously I was giving lots of speeches and talking about bailouts, and he finally turned to me in the pickup on the way home one night and said, Mom, what is a bailout? And I said, well, Booker, actually it's when people make some poor decisions or get into a situation where they need help, but what the government has done is they've come out and taken money from everybody in the country and given it to them so they don't have to face the consequences of it. And he said, boy, when you get elected, will everybody get their money back? I said, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on it. But this freshman class is filled with people like that. 37 of them have never held public office before. I think there's 7 farmers or ranchers. There's doctors. There's people who run small businesses, like Bobby Schilling from Illinois, who runs a pizzeria restaurant. We have a former NFL football player. I don't know if there's any Eagles fans in the house. But they all came here to make the tough decisions. The American people asked us to do that, and we're prepared to do it. And we're having those discussions every single day. And I will tell you, tough decisions is exactly what we're going to do and what we're going to make. Now, like a lot of families, I didn't grow up in a very political family. My dad, obviously, I've told you, was a cowboy. His way of raising us was telling us that, you know, courage was being scared but getting in the saddle anyways. And a lot of us freshmen don't have a whole lot of knowledge necessarily about the way that Washington, D.C. is operated. And frankly, we don't really care. It maybe seemed a little scary to throw our hats into the ring, but we knew that we needed to do it, and we needed to do it for our children. I've been put on two committees, the Natural Resources Committee and the Education Committee, and I'll tell you, the education that we're giving our children is not adequate. It is not what they deserve. I spoke to some seniors in a government class a couple weeks ago, and I said to them, I said, you are potentially the first generation since this country was founded that is not going to receive as good of an education as your parents had. That you are not going to be as well educated as they are. And I said, so your worst fears have been realized. Your parents are smarter than you are. But essentially what that translates back into is less opportunities for them. Where we grew up thinking maybe we could do and go anywhere and be anything that we wanted to be, our children may not have that opportunity because of what we're doing to our country. And so we need to turn that around. One of the big kids in the back of the room, I think he was a football player, said, Kristi, what are you going to do about it? And I think about him every day, because every decision that we make up on Capitol Hill needs to be thinking about those kids. When we're making those tough cuts, I want every one of you back home, when you're talking to people, I'm going to ask a favor of you. When you're talking to people, when we start looking at programs and good things that have gotten federal funding that maybe aren't going to anymore, ask them to take out pictures of their children and to look at them and to say, do our children deserve to pay for this? Maybe we need to make some sacrifices so our children have the future that they can have, so that we make those tough decisions to give them the hope that they need to have. So in the midst of all of this, we are making some tough decisions that are going to put us back on the right track. Our number one goal is to stimulate this economy and to create jobs, that those kids can have jobs right here at home. You know, citizens' legislatures are exactly what our founding fathers intended. Did you know that for the very first time in history, the Constitution was read on the House floor this year at the beginning of this Congress? The leadership of the House in this freshman class recognizes that it is our guidepost, that it is going to guide us on all of our decision making that we need to make. You know, and citizens' legislatures are what our founding fathers envisioned. They expected Americans with business experience to step up and to serve. In South Dakota, we have a citizens' legislature. It is extremely valuable to have people there who have that experience running businesses, knowing what it's like to make those tough decisions. And those people who've seen the harm that government can do, and to help keep that government in check. Instead, what do we have today? I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have today. When our founders stepped back, I don't think they even envisioned what our country looks like right now. I don't believe our founders ever thought that we'd be in the situation that there'd be a day where we'd have full-time year-round legislators in Washington passing several thousand-page bills that admittedly many of them didn't even read. I don't think they imagined that we'd have a president who appoints nearly 30 czars to regulate industries, to manage billions, and expand the reach of the executive branch. And I don't believe that they would have thought it was possible that our president could propose spending plans that would double our national debt in 5 years and triple it in 10, and then call it a stimulus plan or an investment plan or whatever it is that he's calling it these days. You know, as I mentioned at the beginning of my remarks, the tide is turning. It's my hope that with so many Americans waking up to what their government is doing, we can make some real headway. We can enact some real good growth in our economy. We can create jobs, and we can fight against this growth of government. We can end the excessive spending, and we can end the endless borrowing that we're passing on to our children. As a new member of the House, I hope that we can be a firewall against the liberal agenda that's being pushed by many. It's my hope that the House, with your help, will turn the focus in this country back around, back to less spending, to limited, smaller government, and maintaining a strong national defense. But we need reinforcements. Many of you out there need to consider running, need to consider serving. It truly is a role that many of you need to look at and say, what can I do? I never in my entire life dreamed that I would be in Congress. In fact, even a year ago was when I was wrestling with the decision. My opponents in the Republican primary announced back in September, October. It was this week last year when I was trying to decide if I would run, and I announced on February 16th. So I will tell you that a lot of things can change in a year, and there can be a lot of hope in a year, and sometimes all you need is for good people to step up and to consider doing that. I'm just going to close with one final thought on President Reagan again. One of the things that I always admired about him was his optimism. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We have a lot of things in this country that need to be fixed. And we're going to have a lot of tough discussions ahead of us. But I will tell you, we need some optimism as well. Because while today is exciting, it's exciting to be a conservative. Together, with hard work, we can make tomorrow even better. So thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.